Let me ask you something. Have you ever stopped to wonder where the idea of separation of church and state actually comes from? Was it always just assumed to be right? Was it always seen as good? Because here's the truth. In Queen Isabella's time, this idea would have been completely foreign, unthinkable even. Why? Because to her and to the Catholic imagination, the spiritual and the temporal weren't enemies. They were partners. So when tensions started to rise between Spain and Portugal over new lands being discovered, why do you think Isabella turned to Pope Alexander for help? Was it because she saw the church as an interfering bureaucracy? A monster? Or was it because she saw the church as the highest moral authority on earth? An authority with the right and duty to guide kings and settle disputes? What about us? Why do we today so easily accept the idea that religion should be kept out of politics, that faith must be hidden in private, that the state should treat all religions the same, as if they were just flavors at an ice cream shop? Is that really tolerance, or is it something else? Is it possible that this so-called separation of church and state has one inevitable end? That in pretending all religions are equal, we end up believing that none of them are true? And if none of them are true, what happens to our one holy Catholic and Apostolic faith? Does it get honored? Or does it get diluted, dismissed, even dissolved? What we take for granted today as common sense was, in truth, a radical departure from centuries of Catholic order. And Queen Isabella, she never made that departure, which is why she acted the way she did, and why we maybe should start asking questions about the ideas we've been taught to accept without question. Have you seen Spain lately? Have you seen any of Europe lately? Let me ask you something else that might make you uncomfortable. If we're all starting to realize just how manipulated American history has been, why should we assume that Catholic history hasn't been manipulated too? Why should we think that the truth about our faith, about our heroes, about our past, has been told to us straight, especially by the same systems that distort everything else? Think about it. Modern textbooks tend to portray monarchs like Queen Isabella as power-hungry, superstitious tyrants who use the church to prop up their own empires. But is that actually the truth? Or is that a narrative? Because the deeper you go, the more you find something very different. The good monarchs, yes, they existed, didn't work outside the church. They worked with her. They didn't silence the Pope. They sought his wisdom. Just as the apostles once went to Peter, St. Peter, to settle matters in the early church, the Acts of the Apostles. These rulers turned to the papacy, not just for blessings, but for judgment, for justice, for clarity. So why have we forgotten that? Why do we assume that church and state must be enemies? Why do we think it's progress when our faith gets quarantined like it's a COVID virus? Is it really about freedom? Or is it actually about forgetting? About removing the church's voice from the public square? The doctrine of separation of church and state, this sacred cow of America, has not only not always been taught, but it has been explicitly condemned. Again and again. Pope after pope. Century after century. Until, of course, the 1960s, when suddenly the language of ecumenism and tolerance began to replace clarity with ambiguity. So we're at a crossroads with history and belief. The question is no longer about laws or politics. It's about identity, about who shapes your soul and guides your conscience, about whether the faith that formed continents can find a place in little old America. Because if the church and the state are meant to be at odds, then what hope is there for truth in the public square? If faith is confined to whispers behind closed doors, what future awaits the generations to come? Think on that as we prepare to journey deeper into stories, into saints the battles that have defined not just nations, but souls. This isn't just history. It's a call to awaken and to choose. Because who we are is more than citizenship, more than the flag we stand with, more than a political state. It's defined by the state of our soul and the King we serve. And if Christ is truly King, not just of our hearts, but of history, of nations, of civilization itself, then no earthly allegiance should ever come before him. That's why Spain crossed oceans. That's why Queen Isabella gave all she had. Not for fame, not for flags, but for the chance to introduce even one more soul to the King.